We've all seen the memes that say something like, if you should have to pass a drug test for your welfare check because I had to pass one to earn it for you. And drug testing the recipients of welfare is a hot button issue that is dominated by optics, emotions, and sound bites. And very little empirical data is given at the time for anybody to make an informed decision. Personally, this is not an issue that I have a stake in one way or the other, but my viewpoint has evolved as time passed and I accrued more life experience. When I was 19, I worked for a drug and alcohol recovery program in San Diego County, California. And my job was to go into the restroom with female federal probationers and watch them urinate into a cup in order to fulfill their drug testing requirements as part of their probation. And I don't know what the status, whether or not they were on welfare or what socioeconomic status they had. But I did hear quite a few excuses, and I had seen quite a few ways that people tried to cheat their way out of their drug test. And after that experience, I pretty much had a black and white view in what was right and what was wrong, and there was no gray issue when it came to drug testing for me. However, over the years, I started to pay attention to the news more and what politicians spent our taxpayer dollars on. I read articles on substance abuse, and over time, my views evolved from being pro-drug testing to vehemently against testing for being a complete waste of time and resources of taxpayer dollars. The cost of funding welfare is a huge topic of debate in U.S. politics. The libertarian think tank Cato Institute estimates that $668 million is spent annually on federal welfare alone. And this does not include state and local level spending, which they estimate could bring the total closer to $1 billion annually. Advocates of drug testing welfare recipients believe that catching the drug users that are on welfare will end up saving the state or federal government money in the long run. However, the statistical data for this argument does not quite add up. According to an article in CNBC, the national debt is now $20 trillion. And depending on the source, drug tests for a single user averages about $35 to $75. In 2015, there were 10 states that had laws that included drug testing welfare recipients in Step 4. State data research by Think Progress showed that these 10 states spent about $1 billion for very little savings in return. Missouri had 38,970 total welfare recipients, of which 48 tested positive. In Oklahoma, not all welfare recipients have to be tested. There has to be a reasonable cause, as in prior use or drug offense. And 3,342 welfare recipients were drug tested, and of which 297 tested positive. Utah also has a reasonable cause clause in their laws. And out of 9,552 people tested, 29 were positive. However, Arizona has the most stringent laws of testing, and out of 142,424 welfare recipients, 3 tested positive. The Center for Law and Public Policy estimates that it costs approximately $20,000 to $77,000 to catch just one drug user. This is not even close to recouping what was spent in actual welfare costs for that one drug user. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, the national average of drug users is 9.4% of the population. However, in the states that have laws, the averages range from 0.2% to 8.3%. This is nowhere near the national average. Those supporting welfare drug testing says it shows that they care about the working class and the average person working an entry-level job to earn their money, as opposed to giving it to somebody that abuses drugs. However, the data to support the welfare recipients are drug users doesn't add up. Advocates espouse that if a welfare recipient knows that their aid will be terminated with a positive result, they will make a greater effort to keep clean. And there is an argument that drug users choose to take drugs and therefore are not entitled to assistance. However, oftentimes welfare recipients have families that depend on the assistance for money for food. And as a society, we have a moral obligation to help children, and taking away any welfare assistance from someone that is abusing drugs will end up harming the child more than it helps the drug user. Advocates against drug testing believe that there is a constitutional issue involved and that it violates the Fourth Amendment's probable cause clause. The ACLU has fought against this issue for many years, and the Supreme Court has ruled in their favor. The only reason welfare recipients are targeted is because they are on welfare, and it is an expedient red herring solution to the problem. Both sides are quick to produce the argument that the test results are skewed, and they are both right. According to data on WebMD, false negatives occur as much as 10 to 15% of the time, and false positives occur 5 to 10%. Even common painkillers such as ibuprofen and foods like poppy seed muffins can contribute to false positives. These tests are not infallible, and yet both sides are quick to use the statistics in their favor. Texas is a state that is hard on crime, and yet an article in CNN shows that they have moved away from punishing drug addicts and locking them up and moved towards offering treatment because in the long run it is cheaper for the state to treat the addicts as opposed to incarceration. Drug testing welfare recipients comes down to scoring political points from the optics of it. The politicians get to look like they are accomplishing something, but a country that is $20 trillion in debt can't afford to throw away money chasing after a low probability of occurrence for optics. There are better ways to use taxpayer dollars to help drug users.